2/3 of Americans claim Social Security before their full retirement age. Yes, you heard that right. 2/3, which means almost everybody. What does the finance world call this? They call it a massive collective mistake. They say millions of people keep making the same error because they don't understand the math. But I'm telling you, as someone who spent years in the market, taking real risks with real money, that's complete nonsense. Sometimes filing at 62 isn't a mistake at all.
In fact, it can be the smartest move of your entire life. Today, I'm going to break down one by one 7 real, legitimate, mathematically solid reasons the finance media will never tell you. Get ready, because by the end of this video, the way you see Social Security is going to change completely. First, let's look at the conventional advice. Wait, hang on until 70, they say. Why? Because after your full retirement age, your benefit grows by 8% for every year you wait. At 70, you start receiving 124% of your full retirement benefit. That sounds pretty reasonable, right? Who wants to leave money on the table? But that advice makes huge assumptions about your life. It assumes you'll live long enough to reach that break-even point. It assumes you don't need the money right now. It assumes your spouse doesn't depend on you filing first.
It assumes your health will stay stable. It assumes you have no other source of income. It assumes timing simply doesn't matter to you. For some people, those assumptions hold true. For most people, they're completely wrong. So let's get the numbers straight first, so we know exactly what we're talking about.
For anyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. At that age, you receive 100% of your PIA, your primary insurance amount. That figure is calculated based on your highest earning 35 years. If you file at 62, you're claiming 5 years early. Your benefit gets permanently cut by roughly 30%. That's a serious reduction.
Say your full retirement benefit would be $4,000 a month. Filing at 62 drops that down to about $2,800. That's not a small difference. But here's where it gets interesting. If you wait until 70, delayed retirement credits push your benefit up to 124% of the full amount. That $4,000 benefit becomes nearly $5,200. At the maximum benefit level, the gap between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70 can exceed $2,200 a month. So everyone asks the same question. When do I actually break even? In other words, when does the person who waited finally catch up to the person who claimed early? The math shows that comparing 62 versus 67, the break-even point lands around age 78. Comparing 62 versus 70, the break-even point falls between roughly age 80 and 81. Comparing 67 versus 70, you're looking at around age 82.
So what do these numbers actually mean? If you claim at 62 and live past 80, waiting would have paid you more in total life. But if you claim at 62 and pass away at 76, you come out tens of thousands of dollars ahead. Social Security was designed so that if you live to average life expectancy, you get roughly the same lifetime total no matter when you file. The system tries to balance everything out mathematically. The only real difference is how those dollars get spread out over time.
Now, let's get into the main event. The 7 reasons claiming at 62 can actually make sense. Reason 1. Filing unlocks spousal and dependent benefits. This is one of the most overlooked details, and it catches people completely off guard. Your spouse can't collect spousal benefits until you file for your own. If your spouse didn't work long enough to qualify, or their benefit is far lower than half of yours, they're depending on you to file first. Spousal benefits can add up to 50% of your full retirement benefit.
For some households, that's a serious chunk of income. If you're married and your spouse is ready to collect, every month you delay directly cuts your household income. Picture this. You're 62 with a strong earnings history.
Your spouse is also 62, but with very few work credits. If you wait until 70 to maximize your own benefit, your spouse has to wait 8 extra years for any spousal benefit at all. That's 8 years of lost household income. Yes, your individual check will be bigger at 70, but the overall household impact might actually favor filing earlier. This matters even more when there's a big earnings gap between spouses. Calculate your household's total benefit, not just your own number. Reason 2, you're single, and your health suggests you won't make it past your mid-70s. I know this isn't a comfortable subject.
Nobody wants to sit down and evaluate their own mortality. But assuming you'll definitely live to 90 when your family history and current health say otherwise isn't optimism, it's poor planning. The average American who reaches 62 can expect to live about 22 more years. That puts average life expectancy around 84. But that's just an average. Half of people live longer, and half live shorter. If you have chronic conditions or a family history of early death, the math shifts dramatically. Remember that break-even point. If you're comparing 62 versus 70, and you don't expect to pass 78, claiming early gets you more total dollars. You're essentially betting on a shorter life, which isn't a pleasant bet, but it might be a realistic one. Filing early in this case maximizes what you actually collect in your lifetime. The bigger check you'd get at 70 means nothing if you never live to see it. Social Security is supposed to be insurance for your retirement. If your retirement will likely be shorter, that insurance should pay out sooner. Reason 3, your spouse has a shorter life expectancy, and you'll eventually collect a larger survivor benefit. This is a sophisticated strategy that doesn't get talked about enough. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse can switch to the deceased spouse's benefit if it's higher. This is called a survivor benefit, based on what the deceased spouse was receiving. Here's how the strategy plays out. Say you have health issues, but your spouse has a higher lifetime earnings record and is expected to live longer. You file on your own record at 62, collecting payments while you're both alive. When you pass away, your spouse switches to their own benefit, which is already larger than your survivor benefit would have been.
Or flip it around. Your spouse has a much higher benefit, but a shorter life expectancy due to a serious illness. In that case, you might file early on your own record to bring in income now. Later, when they pass away, you switch to their larger survivor benefit. This way, you draw income from both records over time instead of optimizing just one. It requires coordination and an honest conversation about health expectations. But for couples with a clear longevity gap, it can be a compelling reason to start earlier.
Reason 4, you're ready to retire. You've stopped working and you have a solid nest egg. This one surprises people because it seems backwards. Why would someone with real assets claim early? Shouldn't they be the ones who can afford to wait? Here's the logic. When you have significant retirement assets, they're presumably invested and growing. If you're not working and living off those assets, every dollar you withdraw stops compounding for the future. If you claim Social Security early and use those payments to cover expenses, you withdraw less from your portfolio. Your investments get more time to grow. In some scenarios, the extra growth on your portfolio over 8 years beats what you'd gain by waiting on Social Security. This strategy also reduces what planners call sequence of returns risk. If the market drops early in your retirement while you're withdrawing heavily, the damage can be permanent. Having Social Security as a baseline income reduces how much you need to pull from investments during rough patches. This isn't right for everyone. It depends on your portfolio size, expected returns, expected lifespan, and tax situation. But for people who've genuinely stopped working and have real assets, claiming early and letting investments ride can actually be the better outcome. Reason 5, you're not working, you don't urgently need the income, but you're an experienced investor who wants to put those payments to work.
This one connects to reason 4, but it's a little different. As someone who trades in the markets myself, I really like this reason because it's straight out of my world. Some people claim early specifically to invest the payments themselves. The logic is simple. Claiming at 62 instead of 70 gets you 8 extra years of payments. Yes, each payment is smaller, but you can invest them. If your returns beat roughly 7 to 8% annually, and you live long enough, those early invested payments can outperform the bigger delayed ones. This is a more aggressive strategy, and it carries real risk. Markets don't return 8% every single year. Some years, they lose 20%. If you invest your early payments and the market crashes, you've made a bad trade. You gave up guaranteed bigger payments for speculative returns that never showed up. But for experienced investors who understand the risk, who have a solid track record, and who don't need that income for daily expenses anyway, this can be a legitimate approach. You're essentially betting you can beat the guaranteed 8% annual growth that waiting would give you. For some people, that's a bet worth taking. Reason 6. You have a future guaranteed lifetime income coming, like a pension or a deferred income annuity. If you know a reliable income stream is coming in a few years, you can look at Social Security differently. Say you're 62, you've stopped working, but a pension kicks in at 65. Or maybe you bought a deferred annuity years ago that starts paying at 67. Either way, your later years already have a stable income floor. You don't need to max out Social Security to build that floor because you've already built it elsewhere. In this case, claiming early gives you income for the gap years. What you collect from 62 to 65 or 67 bridges you until that other guaranteed income starts. Once the pension or annuity kicks in, your combined income covers what you need, and Social Security becomes a supplement rather than a foundation. The key question is whether you can bridge that gap on your own. If you can comfortably cover 3 to 5 years of expenses from savings, waiting might still make sense. But if claiming early smooths out your income without forcing big withdrawals, it can be a solid strategy. Reason 7. You simply can't keep working past 62, and you need the money. Sometimes life doesn't go according to plan. Sometimes you meant to work until 65 or 67, but your body had other ideas. Maybe you spent decades in physically demanding work, construction, manufacturing, nursing, manual labor. By 62, your knees are shot, or your back won't cooperate anymore. Maybe it's chronic pain that makes continuing impossible. Maybe it's not even physical. Maybe you got laid off, and despite months of searching, nobody will hire someone your age at the salary you need. Age discrimination in hiring is illegal, but it's incredibly hard to prove. And in practice, many workers in their early 60s struggle to find comparable work after a layoff. Whatever the reason, if you can't work and don't have enough saved to wait it out, Social Security is there for exactly this. It was always meant to be a safety net. Using it when you genuinely need it isn't failure. It's the system doing exactly what it was designed to do. Just make sure you've explored every option first. Can you shift to something you could do from home? Can you move into less physically demanding work? Can you draw from savings for a year or two while you keep searching? If you've truly exhausted the alternatives, claiming early is the right call. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Don't let financial shame stop you from using a benefit you've paid into for decades. Now let me tell you when you absolutely should not file at 62, because I want to give you the full picture. If you're still working with substantial earned income, filing early is usually a mistake. The 2026 Social Security earnings limit is $24,480. If you earn more than that while collecting benefits before full retirement age, they withhold $1 for every $2 you earn above the limit. You'd be taking a permanent 30% cut and then having payments withheld on top of it because you're earning too much. That creates chaos, permanently reduces your benefit and makes no financial sense. If Social Security will be your primary or only income in retirement, you should seriously consider waiting as long as you can. When Social Security is your main income source, every single dollar of monthly benefit matters enormously. The gap between $2,800 and $4,100 a month can be the difference between getting by and struggling. Work as long as you can. Delay as long as you can. That extra income is worth more to you than it is to someone with multiple income streams. If longevity runs in your family and you're in good health, the math favors waiting. If your parents lived into their 90s, if you exercise regularly, if you don't have major chronic conditions, you're statistically likely to pass that break-even point. Waiting means more total money over your lifetime. And here's something else worth knowing. Once you factor in spousal benefits, survivor benefits, divorced spouse benefits, and all the timing combinations, there are over 700 different Social Security filing strategies. The basic break-even comparison between 62 and 70 is just a starting point. Your personal situation almost certainly involves details that generic advice doesn't capture. In fact, the Social Security Administration removed the break-even calculator from their own website years ago. Too many people were making poor decisions based on that simple formula. They realized a basic calculation couldn't capture the complexity of real financial lives. So what should you actually do? First, know your numbers. Log into your Social Security account and look at your estimated benefits at 62, 67, and 70. Know the actual dollar figures you're working with. Second, assess your health honestly. This doesn't mean being pessimistic. It means being truthful with yourself. Look at your family history, your current conditions, and talk to your doctor about life expectancy. Use that information in your planning. Third, think about your household, not just yourself. If you're married, optimize for total household benefit, not your individual number. Sometimes the higher earner should delay, while the lower earner claims early. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. It depends on both spouses' ages, earnings histories, and health expectations. Fourth, think through your other income sources. What will your retirement income actually look like? Do you have a pension? Do you have significant savings? Is Social Security a complement to other income, or is it your foundation? Your answer shapes the right filing strategy for you. Fifth, if this decision feels overwhelming, consider working with a fee-only financial planner who can run the numbers on your specific situation. A few $100s of professional advice can be worth tens of thousands in lifetime benefits if it leads you to the right decision. The average retirement age in America is 62, not 67, not 70, but 62. 2/3 of people file before full retirement age. Some of them are genuinely making a mistake, but most are making the right call for their own circumstances. Don't let anyone make you feel foolish for considering early filing. And don't let anyone pressure you into waiting when it doesn't fit your life. The best financial decisions aren't the ones that look good on a spreadsheet. They're the ones that account for who you actually are, how long you'll actually live, and what you actually need. As someone who's spent years managing risk in the markets, I'll say this plainly. This is not financial advice. Talk to a professional who understands your specific situation. But whatever you decide with information, not fear. And remember, claiming at 62 isn't always giving up. Sometimes it's actually winning.